Coming to the Tainted Tavern, come sit a while for free. We talk about our musings and devices we've been using.
Okay, hello and welcome to the Tainted Tavern, and today we are going all film noir. We are going to be talking about this Blu-ray here of 1947's Kiss of Death, directed by Henry Hathaway and starring Victor Mature, Brian Donlevy, Colleen Gray and Richard Widmark in his screen debut. And Richard Widmark's screen debut must rank up there with the very best screen debuts. It's a remarkable performance. But let me tell you a little bit more about the film. Kiss of Death, I say, was directed by Henry Hathaway. It's in the canon of films that are regarded as film noir, although I'm not sure if film noir is actually a genre or a style, because if it's a genre, then it would probably be the genre of the dark, the black and white crime movies. And yet critics in the definitive film noirs often list Billy Wilder's excellent The Lost Weekend, which starred Ray Millard as an alcoholic writer. They regularly list that among the canon of the best film noirs. So that would suggest that film noir, rather than being a genre, is a style. But then even if you say it is a style, then it becomes problematic, because you could even then looking at the stylistic elements of film noir, the pessimism, the hopelessness, the dark, shadowy visuals, then you could even place something like the BBC's seminal sitcom Steptoe & Son in amongst noir, because it does use aspects of noir. So I'm undecided whether it's a genre or a style. Sometimes I lean more towards it being a genre, and other times I think, well, it's not really, is it? It's a style, because, you know, if you say it's a genre and then you concentrate that genre on the crime movies of the 1940s and 1950s, that is regarded as the golden age of film noir, then you've got problems with westerns such as Johnny Guitar, which is often called a western noir, and the Oxbow incident. These would be excluded. But if you look at it stylistically, then the Oxbow incident, Johnny Guitar, and a host of others, including The Long Weekend, which I've just mentioned, which is not a western, of course, but that also uses noir sensibilities in the way it's presented and the way the story's told. There's a shootout happening here where the main character from, and I'm just going to mute the sound here, when the main character from Kiss of Death, Victor Mature, is out doing his Christmas shopping the only way he knows how, and being a hood, a crook with a criminal record, the only way he knows how to do his Christmas shopping is by robbing. The story the film as a narration, and it's narrated by Colleen Gray, and she, right at the opening of the film, it tells us that Nick Bianco, that's Victor Mature's character, has a criminal record. He hasn't worked for an X amount of time, so he has no money, because every time he goes for a job interview, it's suggested in the narration that he doesn't get the job because of his criminal records, and so it says this is how Victor Mature's character, Nick Bianca, goes Christmas shopping. So right off, this robbery goes wrong. Bianca ends up arrested. You can see him here talking to Brian Donlevy's character, in which he's offered a deal that will keep him out of prison if he squeals on the other people involved in the robbery. Victor Mature's character refuses to do that, because he lives by this code of you never squeal, and he reasons that while he is away in prison, then his wife and children will be looked after by the organization that he works for. That doesn't happen, to suffice to say. Now, Victor Mature gives a wonderful performance in this. He looks beaten down by life, his facial expressions, he's got these hand-dog eyes. It reminds me a lot of Sylvester Stallone in his looks. So he refuses to squeal. ends up going to prison, gets a much longer prison sentence than expected. He gets 20 years. 3 years into his prison sentence, he finds out his wife has died, and that's an interesting aspect of the movie which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I want to tell you what special features are on this Blu-ray edition here, which comes from Signal One Blu-rays. So we've got an high definition transfer, of course, that goes without saying. We've got a Richard Widmark interview from 2002 in which a celebrated actor discusses his career, which includes this film, Kiss of Death, in an on-stage interview at the National Film Theatre. That's a brilliant interview. I really enjoyed that. That's a very, very good special feature. There's also a feature-length audio comedy with film historians James Ursini and Alan Silver, and of course the original theatrical trailer. Now, I was a bit disappointed by the commentary. It's just those two guys sitting there talking about the film, but there's so much they could have missed on. They could have put focus on. For instance, as I just said, Nick Bianco, Victor Matua's character, finds out that his wife is dead while he's in prison. He's been in prison for 3 years. He finds out she committed suicide. Now, it's rather jarring the way it plays out in the film, but the scenes were originally shot where she was raped and then she committed suicide, but the censor wouldn't have that, and those scenes had to be cut out. And so we find out that she'd committed suicide, and the reason is given gradually, drip-fed in dialogue, that she committed suicide because she was struggling financially, that she wasn't looked after by the organisation who Nick Bianca, Victor Matua, has been so loyal to, the way she should have been. So that turns up now for the rest of the film, where he does eventually, Nick Bianca, make a deal with the DA, in which he will become a squealer in exchange for a new identity, a job on the outside, so he can rebuild his life. Victor Matua, as I say, his performance is absolutely wonderful. It's so nuanced in this, and yet he was so self-effacing as an actor. There's a famous story where he was turned down membership of a golf club, a country club, because actors weren't allowed. And Victor Matua reportedly replied to that, "Actor? I'm no actor. I've got 28 movies and a scrapbook of reviews to prove that." But his performance, nevertheless, in this is absolutely stunning. But by far the most stunning performance in this movie comes from Richard Widmark, and his first screen role. He'd done radio, he'd done a lot of theatre, but this was his first screen role, and he plays the character of the crooked, psychotic gangster Tommy Udo. He plays his part absolutely wonderful. His performance is remarkable. And what's incredible about this is this could have been such a different movie, because director Henry Hathaway, who's always a workman-like director rather than a stylist in any case. I mean, he's a great director. I mean, he directed John Wayne's Oscar-winning. The only time that John Wayne won an Oscar, that was for playing Rooster Cogburn in True Grit. Henry Hathaway, of course, directed that. He did several of the John Wayne movies, but he was a workman-like director. He wasn't stylish in any genre that he worked in a way that, say, Fritz Lang was. Fritz Lang who made many of the seminal film noirs. So we're going back again now to, is film noir a genre or is it a style? But let's say it's a style, and then a director like Fritz Lang was very much a stylist, whereas Henry Hathaway was very workmanlike. But he didn't like the idea of Richard Widmark playing Tommy Udo, and he kicked him a fuss from the studio. But right from his screen test, the studio recognized something there and ordered him to go with Richard Widmark, and thankfully he did, because this film, I mean, Richard Widmark's performance is a slice of screen history. In an interview, Richard Widmark revealed that he was a lifelong fan of DC's Batman comics, and that shouldn't come as a surprise, because his performance of Tommy Udo, he's very much channeling the character of the Joker from Batman. He's got this maniacal laugh and this toothy grin, and he's so ruthless. A very famous scene from the movie. He goes to an apartment looking for a fellow gangster who was turned squealer, or at least he thinks he's turned squealer. It actually is Victor Matua's character has actually done the squealing, but nevertheless, he believes it's his other character. He goes there, he finds that the gangster's not there, just his mother's at home, his crippled mother in a wheelchair. Tommy Udo questions her, and she's told that her son would be back later. But Udo takes a look around the apartment, and he notices a lot of the guy's clothes have gone, so you can see he's skipped town, he's not coming back. Udo's then really angry because the crippled lady has lied to him, the crippled old lady has lied to him, and so he pulls a lamp, pulls the flex off the lamp, ties it around her, binds her to a wheelchair, and then mercilessly throws her down the stairs. It's an incredibly powerful scene, shocking even now in 2025 to watch this. Now the film ends, visually at least, in a downbeat way, because Victor Matua's character lures Richard Widmark's character somewhere where the police are coming to arrest him. So Richard Widmark's character Tommy Udo is eventually shot dead by the police, but not before putting a few bullets into Victor Matua, into the gut. As he says earlier in the film, Tommy Udo, that is Richard Widmark's character, he says he likes to shoot dead guys in the gut so they can roll about in agony for some time and think about why he shot them. So Victor Matua's character is shot several times in the stomach. He couldn't possibly survive this. He hits the deck. So visually that's the end of the film. But the studio weren't happy with this and they insisted on an happy ending. So then we get the voiceover from Colleen Gray, which tells us that Nick Bianca, that's Victor Matua, did actually live. I think this is an absolutely stunning film. It's a great transfer. The grain management is really good because sometimes, quite often in fact, with a Blu-ray or a 4K transfer of a classic film, they tend to use DNR, that's digital noise reduction, too much to remove a lot of the film grain, and this results in skin tones looking rather waxy on screen. That's not the case here. It's an absolutely stunning film. It's also one of the documentary type film noirs, in that it was filmed entirely on location. These scenes you're seeing here, where he's waiting for a letter here from his wife, this was actually filmed in New York Sing Sing prison, as was the robbery which opens the film. That was actually filmed in the Chrysler building. So it's a great film, absolutely stunning film. That's Kiss of Death, directed by Richard Hathaway, starring Victor Matua, and a breakout performance from Richard Widmark. I think Richard Widmark is one of the best screen psychos ever. I mean, his performance here ranks alongside both Robert Mitchum and Robert De Niro's version of Max Cady in Cape Fear, and the Cape Fear remake, respectively. Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins' performance in Silence of the Lambs. Widmark's performance is up there with all these guys. It's an absolutely stunning film. Anyway, that's Kiss of Death from 1947, directed by Henry Hathaway. Well worth checking out.
Coming to the Tainted Tavern, come sit a while for free. We talk about our musings and devices we've been using.